What is up, guys? It's Sky, and I'm sure most of you have already heard the news. The Star Wars Battlefront 2 trailer went live a couple days ago, and there's a huge amount of hype surrounding it. A lot of people seem to have positive opinions on the Battlefront 2 trailer, and it's amazing what good marketing can do for a game. The original Battlefront was actually much maligned. It's amazing how a really good trailer can pretty much turn around public perception. Now, the original Battlefront is a game that I've played a ton of. I actually personally really enjoyed it. I actually got the max rank. It's pretty much the first game I've ever gotten max rank in. I'm not even max rank in Battlefield 1 yet. I think that the cool thing to do is to hate on Battlefront, but I want to do a video on what Battlefront did right. There was actually a ton of people playing Battlefield all last year. A lot of them were complaining, but they were always coming back for more. Even to this day, it's pretty easy to hop into the PS4 version and jump into a playlist and get a game going. The first thing that I personally really enjoyed about the original Battlefront is what you see in the gameplay, the fighter combat. It's actually something that a lot of people complain about. The time to kill is pretty much instant, and there's lock-ons for your main cannon. To top that off, the game had arcade-style controls. You didn't have any roll controls for your fighter. A lot of people actually cried foul over this and called it too casual, but I for one kind of embraced it. It made things a lot more fast-paced and edge of your seat. When's the last time in Battlefield you tailed someone like this? Now, one of the strangest aspects of game design in Battlefront was the imbalance between the Rebel fighters and the Imperial fighters. Personally, I enjoyed it because whenever I was in a Rebel fighter, the game was a lot more relaxed and easy, and then when I jumped into the Imperial fighters, I had to be a lot more engaged. In Battlefield, I think it's a little too easy to run the table in a plane if you really know what you're doing. But while the asymmetrical gameplay worked for me, it didn't really work for most people, and I think I have to agree that in Battlefront 2, they should try to add a little more depth and balance to the fighter gameplay. Hopefully, it can still retain some of the fast-paced, edge-your-seat action of the original game. Now, if you're one of the people that played Battlefront for like 2 weeks and then quit and went on YouTube to complain about it, you probably really only played Walker Assault. Walker Assault was kind of the featured game mode that was in the beta, and at launch, there was only 4 maps for Walker Assault. I can understand why someone would be upset at that, but you have to realize that there were other modes as well. The smaller modes like Heroes vs. Villains and Cargo, they all had their own maps. There were like 9 maps dedicated to the smaller modes, and they were completely different from the big maps. Whereas in Battlefield, if you play smaller modes like Domination or Team Deathmatch, it's just the Conquest map it's basically just one of the objectives from the Conquest map. If you played Team Deathmatch in Battlefront, you were playing on completely different maps. Believe me, people that played Battlefront, we all loved Heroes vs. Villains. The hero gameplay in Battlefront was like a game within a game. There were so many intricacies. People were going on the forum just talking about every little aspect of game balance with the heroes, and things were buffed and patched over and over. It was a good time, and it's something that pretty much all the haters on the internet missed out on. Basically, if you went into Battlefront expecting Call of Duty or Battlefield, then you would be disappointed. But if you went into Battlefront just expecting a video game, then there was a lot to offer. Compared to the big shooters out there, i.e. Call of Duty or Battlefield, there was a much better variety of game modes in Battlefront, and all the playlists were populated. Like, if you go on Call of Duty, it's just Team Deathmatch, Domination, and a little bit of Search and Destroy. If you go on Battlefield, it's mostly Conquest and Operations. Battlefront had some awesome smaller game modes like Cargo, which is basically Capture the Flag, Fighter Squadron, of course Heroes vs. Villains. These were all awesome game modes, and hopefully they're going to be replicated in some way in Battlefront 2, because believe me guys, you guys really missed out. There was even a small little competitive scene on the PC version, and they played Cargo, and it was a way better competitive scene than anything you could possibly do in Battlefield. All the complaints about lack of content pretty much just centered around the Walker Assault game mode. In my opinion, that's where everyone went wrong, because Walker Assault was only like 10% of the content in Battlefront. Another thing you missed out on if you quit Battlefront within 2 weeks of release is the fact that the devs really seemed like they cared. They always seemed like they were in touch with the community, listening and responding to feedback. It wasn't until recently that DICE decided to start patching Battlefield monthly, but Battlefront was getting monthly patches throughout a lot of its life cycle. One thing that Battlefront eventually got right and Battlefield could learn from is how to get rid of explosive spam. Now, this was something that at launch initially was actually a lot worse in Battlefront. The explosive star cards were extremely powerful and everyone was running them, but eventually they were patched. But more importantly, Throughout subsequent game updates and DLCs, DICE introduced a lot of interesting equips that were a lot more interesting than running an explosive. Eventually it became desirable to run these alternative loadouts rather than carry a grenade. So about halfway into its life cycle, explosive spam wasn't really an issue on Battlefront. That's another thing about Battlefront, whether you love it or hate it. I personally don't like it, but they really changed the game into its life cycle. They added so many blasters and gadgets, and it's really not even recognizable anymore. Now, me personally, I don't really like it because the game I fell in love with was the game kind of at launch and a couple months in. It's kind of hard for me to jump back in and enjoy it the way I did when I first played it. And the gameplay you see, some gameplay I recorded a couple months ago, I actually jumped back in and played a little bit of the Rogue One DLC after it was released, and actually managed to top the server in this gameplay. I was actually surprised. I thought it'd be kind of rusty, but I guess it was a weaker lobby. That's another thing that I had a lot of fun with in Battlefront is the DLCs. They really added awesome maps, awesome guns, awesome new heroes, really fun game modes. I stayed with Battlefront through pretty much the first two DLC, the Death Star DLC where it started to kind of lose me. I remember going on the forums and really hoping that they would release Bespin as the second DLC, and lo and behold, they actually did it. And Bespin was an awesome DLC. Basically, anyone you talk to is pretty much going to agree that Battlefront was a good game. A lot of people kind of did themselves a disservice, I think, by putting the game down so early. I really think that we got our money's worth with the original Battlefront. The devs were so dedicated, constantly patching the game. The DLCs were all really good. Really, the original Battlefront kind of felt like a diamond in the rough. If you look back at gaming history, you have games like Mass Effect, Mortal Kombat, Resident Evil, even the original Super Mario Bros. Basically great games with tons of potential, and then the devs refined things for future sequels and made games that were pretty much generation defining. Super Mario Bros. 3, Resident Evil 2, Mortal Kombat 2, all on my best games of all time list. So my hope is that DICE can take the successes of the first game, which there were a lot, listen to the community, be creative, and make Star Wars Battlefront 2 an even more amazing game that everyone can enjoy. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Thanks for watching. If you're new here, thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.